All right, we got a lot of information, a lot of people out there, social media land, politicians talking about people that are in this country illegally receiving Social Security benefits. So I'm going to talk to you today about how Social Security, the administration, 1,200 plus offices throughout the country deal with that issue. And will that issue affect you? Yes, if you don't know how to address it. And it will also affect you in another way. It sounds like most definitely it's going to affect you in the future, your Social Security check, but not in the way you think. And unless you're a regular viewer, if you're new to my channel, this is also a live Q&A. Already got some questions there. So all things Social Security, retirement, disability, survivor benefits, how much your check should be, can you get extra checks, all the rest of it. I'll discuss that. But let's go ahead and go into exactly what we're talking about here. Immigrants collecting Social Security illegally. So people that are in the country, they don't have legal status. Can they get Social Security benefits, retirement benefits, disability benefits, and how does the Social Security Administration deal with this? If you're new to my channel, I ran the third busiest Social Security office in the country. I've taken millions of claims. I've helped millions of people out with all things Social Security, and I've seen this on a daily basis. So I'm going to tell you probably about 80% of the ways that Social Security Administration deals with this. I'm not going to tell you the other 20% because it's kind of a secret type thing. So, all right. So we've all heard about the fake Social Security numbers. You can go down to your local swap meet and someone's there with the little typewriter or whatever, print it off and typewriter, okay, printer, and they print off your Social Security number for you. And now you've got a Social Security number and you take that to an employer. That employer is supposed to check through the Social Security system, e-verify and stuff, but a lot of employers out there, you know, they want the cheap labor, so they go ahead and, yeah, okay, whatever. It looks like a real Social Security number to me, even though Social Security is spelled incorrectly, and, you know, but okay, you know, I need cheap labor, so they go ahead and hire the person, and that person works under a fake Social Security number, or they work under an ITIN. That's a tax ID number that the IRS issues people. So if you're not able to get a Social Security number and you're working, you know, I guess there's sanctuary farms and sanctuary hotels and resorts now that the current administration is kind of turning a blind eye. It says, okay, yeah, we're gonna, you know, the people hanging out at Home Depot, we're gonna go down there and arrest those people, but the people working in the farms and the hotels and the golf courses or whatever, we're gonna leave those people alone. But they can't get a Social Security number because they're not in the country legally. So the IRS issues them an individual tax ID number. And because the IRS doesn't care, you know, what your legal status is, that's not their department. You know, that's Department of Homeland Security. The IRS, their job is to get money. So if whoever X person in this country illegally working at some golf course or some farm wants to pay in taxes, then by all means, pay taxes. How do you do that? They give them ITIN. Okay, so those people work, if you're under ITIN, you're not going to get Social Security. You're going to pay into Social Security. It's estimated about $30 billion every year gets paid into Social Security, the Social Security Trust Fund, from people that are working in this country illegally. And as long as they're in this country illegally, they're not going to collect Social Security. And I'm going to go into details of how Social Security prevents that. So, but if you're working under a fake Social Security number you got at the swap meet, you're, you know, the employer is withholding your FICA tax and your state taxes and your federal taxes, the Social Security, Medicare taxes and stuff like that. And that's essentially a donation because you'll never be able to get it because you're in the country illegally. So that money, you know, they're not going to be collecting Social Security. If they decide, you know, 20, 30 years later to go into Social Security with that fake Social Security number, Social Security can say, hey, that's not your Social Security number. That's some, you know, random number you came up with that has no relative, you know, relevance to anything. Thank you for the donation for the past 10 or 20 or 30 years. But yeah, that's a fake Social Security number. Or the ITIN. We can't give Social Security benefits an ITIN. You have to have a legitimately approved Social Security number, and you don't have it, so you ain't going to get it. Again, thank you for the donation for the last few decades. Okay, what if it's not a fake Social Security number? What if it's your social security number. And some people say, oh my gosh, if someone's working under my social security number, that's going to be an issue. I'm not going to like that. Well, yes and no. So if someone is working under your social security number, there's a couple of ways you're notified. One is you set up a social security account. You go into ssa.gov, set up my social security, go in there. You should do this anyway, because your benefit amount for your entire life, if you ever go on retirement benefits, disability benefits, surviving spouse benefits, children benefits off your record, whatever the case may be, it's based on how much you actually paid into Social Security, your high 35 years, okay? So if someone else is working under your Social Security number, you look at your earnings record every year. Hopefully you're looking at your earnings record, like the statement they used to send out, Social Security used to send out. But you can go online and look at that. So if you see earnings in there, like for instance, last year you made, we're working and making $50,000, and all of a sudden there's $100,000 from, the other 50,000 is from some business in, Topeka, Kansas. And you're like, I don't live in Topeka, Kansas. I don't work for this, whatever company. Somebody is working under your Social Security number. And people say, well, that's great. I want someone to work under my Social Security number because therefore that's more being paid under my Social Security number. And therefore, when I retire, my Social Security benefits will increase. Yes, that is a fact. Until they don't. Until they find that person, they almost always find that person, and they say, hey, you've been working under this other person's Social Security number, and they'll come after you. And if you were collecting Social Security benefits based on an increase based on someone else's earnings, then Social Security is going to come after you and say, hey, we paid you extra money for the last year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. And that wasn't your earnings. We took those earnings off, and now you owe us all this money. So it's always good to just go ahead and, clean it up from the beginning. Okay. So that is one way. So fake Social Security number, you can't get Social Security because it's fake. Working under your Social Security number, you will catch it. Hopefully you catch it. If you don't catch it by going into, ssa.gov and setting up the account, the IRS will let you know. Because if someone is working under your Social Security number and they, paying those taxes or whatever the case may be, and then they start collecting Social Security benefits later, when you collect Social Security benefits, Social Security sends you a 1099 every year that says, hey, last year we paid you $25,000 of Social Security benefits. So if someone is working and collecting under your Social Security number, then if you don't report those earnings, that $25,000 that someone else made under your Social Security number, the IRS is going to say, hey, you owe us taxes because you said you made $50,000, but no, you actually made $75,000. And you're like, no, I didn't. I only made $50,000. No, looks like someone's working under your Social Security number. So that stops that immediately, right? So people can't work under your can't get collect benefits under your Social Security number because you'll know it one or two ways. All right. In terms of people actually going into Social Security and kind of collecting benefits, there's several ways. So if you ever filed for benefits, if you were born in the United States and everything is correct on your numident, that's your internal Social Security record, they ask you those questions: what's your date of birth, mother's maiden name, your address, stuff like that. If you've had your Social Security card for a long time, it was given to you, before you're like 10, 15, 20 years old, then it's not an issue. If it is any type of other Social Security type number, they ask you a whole bunch of other questions, need documentation. If you are born in another country, they're going to need your certificate of naturalization, your green card, your legal status in the United States. And when you have to provide that, you have to provide the original. And then the Social Security Administration does this thing with the Department of Homeland Security. It's called SAVE. It's a SAVE system that they confirm the authenticity of that person's legal status in the United States. So they just don't take your green card and say, oh yeah, it looks good to me. No, they have to put it in a system. And done this hundreds of thousands of times. They put it in the SAVE system. It contacts the Department of Homeland Security. It confirms that that is a valid green card or naturalization or whatever the case may be, and then it's okay. Then the person can go ahead and pay. And there's one or two other tricks in there that Social Security Administration uses to make sure people are not collecting Social Security benefits incorrectly. So, okay, so number one, fake it, Social Security number. You can't get benefits on fake Social Security numbers anyway. Your Social Security number, you're going to catch it one or two ways. And then when people come in, if someone comes in and wants to collect Social Security benefits on your Social Security record, and you're already receiving Social Security, then yeah, they're going to be laughed out of the office, or arrested out of the office because you're already collecting Social Security benefits, and someone comes in and tries to collect benefits. Then obviously, yeah, that's not going to work, right? All right. So what else we got here? So it's pretty much impossible for someone to work and collect benefits under your Social Security. They can work, but hopefully you catch it. But in terms of collecting Social Security benefits under your record, can't do it. What about someone that's deceased? You heard, Elon Musk talking about these millions of people that are, still alive in the Social Security database. They're 120 years old, 200 years. What about people that are in this country illegally working under those, because those records are still active? Regular viewers to my channel know where I'm going here. Social Security has several databases. The one that Elon Musk was looking at was just the Social Security number, right? So Social Security legally could not close those out unless they had a valid death certificate. They didn't. Those people were MIA. They were, they passed away overseas, whatever the case may be. And Social Security did not have an official death certificate to close that out. But on the actual payment records, those people are suspended, closed out, terminated. So it's no issue whatsoever. So if someone comes into the Social Security Administration and wants to see if they can collect benefits under someone that's deceased, that's a no-brainer. Then Social Security will say, yeah, okay, this is one of those 120-year-old people that the record is not closed out on this side, but on this side, this person, we know has been terminated for 20 or 30 years. We just didn't have the official death certificate to actually close out this side, because we've been asking Congress for resources and policy updates so we could close that out. But politicians never wanted that record to be closed out because they used to beat up on Social Security all the time. Oh my gosh, Social Security is so incompetent that they've got all these people 120-year-old. And it's like, yeah, we can fix that. And we can fix that in a few weeks if you allow us to fix it. We'd be more than happy to fix it. And politicians, don't fix it. We want to beat up on you every now and then about that whole thing. So, yeah, that was a big scam politicians, played on us. And there's on a deceased one, there's other ways the Social Security Administration can find out if that person is not who they think they are. When you reach your Medicare age, Medicare notifies Social Security that, hey, this person's on Medicare and they haven't been using their Medicare for quite a while. Maybe that person actually isn't out there. Or quite often what it is, it's not people that are in the country illegally. Most of the fraud that happens related to this type of stuff are the kids or the spouses or cousins or aunts or uncles or something like that of 99% American citizens that someone passed away. And I'm sure you've seen it. In my particular district that I ran, in 20 years, we had one of these, but throughout the country, they have them probably once a year, that someone passes away, and it's usually the child that was living with that person. They don't notify Social Security or anybody that person passes, and they just, board up the room, or they buy in my case, they got a storage facility, got a 55-gallon drum, and yeah, that's where the body was left. And they continue to collect checks. That's usually the deceased Social Security number continuing to collect benefits, but that has nothing to do with necessarily people working in this country illegally. 99% of the times, it's usually just unfortunately, it's a relative. Those people are eventually caught as well. And one of the ways they're caught is Medicare. If you're, 70, 80, 90 years old, then, you probably, sick, and you probably have to go to the hospital. And so Medicare monitors that. And if someone is not using their Medicare like that, Medicare notifies Social Security, and Social Security sends out the Office of the Inspector General, our special agents, and they go knocking on the doors and say, "Hey, we want to talk to that person," and that's usually where we find those. And then there's another way that it's called the Centenarian Project. That offices throughout the country, they get notifications that someone has reached 100 years old, and Social Security office, the local office, prints off a nice little certificate. We used to do it all the time. And it says, "Congratulations on reaching 100 years old." And we send out one of our employees to that nursing home or that home or wherever the case may be, and, did a nice little thing. And, "Oh, congratulations, 100 years old," do a little small talk and give them their certificate. But, the ulterior motive is to go out there and make sure that person is still out there alive and kicking. So that happens all the time as well. So those are other ways. And then there's 2 or 3 other ways that Social Security prevents people that are in this country illegally from collecting Social Security benefits. And people are going to say, I'm sure in my comments, are they going to say, "Oh, I know this person that knew this person that had this lady down the street who had a cousin who was collecting Social Security benefits." There are people that come into this country and other people don't believe those people should be in this country. And if they ultimately collect Social Security benefits because they paid into the system, they're here illegally. But there's some people that just think, "Well, I don't think those people should be in this country legally." Me and my fellow Marines used to have that issue all the time. During the Iraq War, they would have a translator that helped them out. That translator was killed in action. And their family, the United States allowed them to come to the United States. And other people around them, "Oh, those people shouldn't come to the United States. They're illegal. They shouldn't get this, that, or the other." But the Marines that were on the ground know why that person was allowed in the United States. And they like the fact that we stood up, because that person, helped the Marines, being translators or whatever the case may be. So the very fact that you don't agree with X, Y, or Z group coming into the United States, that's a whole separate thing. If Congress allows people in the United States for under whatever status, asylee status, President Trump just said he's going to allow 600,000 Chinese students to come into the United States, and they are eligible for Social Security cards. So to work and to pay into Social Security and pay taxes and stuff like that when they eventually, if they're, college students, 20, 22, 23 years old, if they eventually, pay into Social Security and they turn 62, and at that time they're still in the country legally, then they can collect, whether you agree with it or disagree with it. Those are legal. So we're not talking about those today. Okay. So, and that goes into point 4. How is all of this going to affect your Social Security check? And here's the thing. It is going to affect your Social Security check, unfortunately. People working in this country supposedly illegally, that whole controversial issue is going to cut your Social Security check in a few years by, the Social Security trustees would argue, about 23%. So you're going to get a 23% cut. Not for, if you're new to my channel, you're probably thinking of something completely different. The reason is because politicians keep using these stupid arguments about people in this country receiving benefits illegally, and we buy it hook, line, and sinker. And they say, well, once we kick out all these people receiving this, incorrect Social Security benefits, then the Social Security Trust Fund is all going to be good. And it's going to last forever. We just need to get these people fraudulently off Social Security, and everything will be hunky-dory. The fact is, as hopefully I proved today, that it is almost impossible, if you're not in this country legally, to collect Social Security benefits. It obviously does happen. There's exceptions. Eventually those people are caught. But the misdirection that politicians use, that they say, well, the reason The reason you're going to get a cut, and we've known about this for 40 years, 40 years of failure by politicians to address the future of Social Security. And why have they failed? Because one of the reasons that we failed, we keep following, we keep being tricked. And politicians say, yeah, we're not going to do anything. Well, we are going to do something. We are going to kick all those illegals off of Social Security benefits, and that will solve the whole problem. And now you know that that's not an issue. Very, 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 very small issue. If we kicked all, if we found all the few people that actually got through all of those barriers that I've talked about, and those few I haven't talked about, then it might add what, a day onto Social Security Trust Fund. So it's very, very small. If you look at any Social Security report, the Office of the Inspector General, the fraud rate is under 1%. So that's pretty good. Social Security is always passed with flying colors, any types of audits. The Department of Defense, not so much. If you really want fraud, waste, and abuse, you need to go to the Department of Defense. Yeah, the reason we're getting cuts in the future is because we are not serious. Our politicians are not serious about addressing the issue. They just want to throw out the red meat for people, and they chomp on that red meat, and then they ignore the real problems. So hopefully now you've got information. And if you know of any other situations about this, you've got a friend or friends, it's usually how it works out, that collects Social Security illegally, then you need to contact the Office of the Inspector General. If you've got any other situations, please make sure you type it into chat. And speaking of that, let's get into some of your questions right now. Let's see, Danny. So anything on Social Security, disability, survivor benefits, retirement benefits, whatever, let's go ahead and get into all of them. I'm on SSI. My retirement starts on October. Okay. Do they deduct the difference in October or November? Okay, so SSI is Supplemental Security Income. That's the welfare-based program. So you're on SSI right now, and you turn 62 in October. So because you're on the welfare-based program, SSI, you are mandated to file for your retirement benefits. So your October check comes in November. So your SSI for October is probably going to be offset by how much you receive from regular Social Security. So, hey Bella, how you doing today? We are in baby boomers retirement ERA. It's pulling FICA. If 7 years ago the FICA cap would have been lifted, we would be better shape. Yes, 100%. That's the issue right there. That's the issue that the politicians don't want you to know about because that affects them and their billionaire buddies. We have 89 more checks, and tomorrow I'm going to change this to 88 more checks because it's September 1st, right? So you have 89 more checks at 100% of what your benefit is, and then the 90th check is going to be a 23% cut. And we've known this for 40 years. Social Security trustees report has, we've been on the Titanic, and they have said, hey, in 40 miles, there's an iceberg we're going to hit. And then a year later, 39 miles, 38 miles, and now we're 7 miles away from it. And yeah, we've had plenty of time, and we just keep falling for the tricks that they tell us. Oh, it was stolen. The Social Security Trust Fund was stolen. That's all BS too. So, but we keep falling for it. Anyone who serves the country is honorable enough to be a citizen. Yeah, and this is a perfect indication. And I agree with you 100%. But, and I've had this happen a few times. Person comes in, they've been in this country pretty much their entire life, but they were born somewhere else. Usually it's Canada. So they were born in Canada. They moved to the United States when they were 4 or 5 years old. They don't remember anything about Canada except for being cold, whatever. And then later on, they're drafted to go to the Vietnam War. They go to the Vietnam War. They have 1 tour, 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. They get the Bronze Star, Silver Star, whatever the case may be, honorable discharge, Purple Heart, the whole 9 yards. And then many decades later, they come in and file for Social Security benefits. And this is the travesty of this. They come in and file for Social Security. And it says, like, okay, you were born in Toronto, Canada. We need your certificate of naturalization or your green card. What do you mean certificate? I lived in America all my life. I served in Vietnam. Here's my DD 214. And during the Vietnam War, they took pretty much anybody. They really didn't check your legal status or anything like that. Just throw you a boot camp, throw you on a boat. So these people who served the United States honorably, may have been injured, Purple Heart, the whole 9 yards. We couldn't give them Social Security benefits because they could not prove their legal status. That was a travesty. That was just unbelievable. We told them, it was okay, yeah. In my office, we had that happen probably about 2 or 3 times. And each time they eventually got it, they would just have to contact their politicians and contact the Department of Homeland Security and get all set up. And they eventually get their, certificate of naturalization or the green card or whatever the case may be. And then we'd be able to give them benefits. But that gives you an indication that, yeah, even people that serve the country, our country, they had to jump through all the hoops and it was difficult. We couldn't give it. So the whole thing about, all these illegals receiving Social Security benefits, that's why our benefits are going to be cut. No, that's what politicians want us to think because they want us to distract us. So, yeah. So if you know anybody in that situation that wasn't able to get their benefits because of a situation like that, I think those are all addressed. But yeah, make sure they contact their politicians, contact the Department of Homeland Security. The reason they should contact their politicians as well is to expedite the process at the Department of Homeland Security. But hopefully everybody's set up on that one. Honestly, I think we can figure things out better than the politicians and the president, but because they wear suits, they think they're smarter. Yeah. Well, I mean, they know what they're doing. Yeah, they know what they're doing. They know they're selling us out. But particularly House of Representatives, as soon as they are sworn into office, they have to run an election again because they have election every 2 years. So they're on a continuous election cycle. So they have to kowtow to the powers that be that pay for their advertising. It's a terrible system. And then with Citizens United, then yeah, once Citizens United hit and, the rich and corporations can give all the money they want because money is free speech, then yeah, that ended it all. So next time you're pulled over by a cop and for speeding, pull out a wad of cash and hand it to them and say, this is free speech. And I guarantee, yeah, you won't be in the same boat as a politician. I'm sure they'll arrest you for bribery. No payment is given for the month in which you pass. Correct. You have to be alive and kicking the entire month in order to get Social Security benefits. That's why when you start your Social Security benefits, they always start a month late, is to catch it at the end, because we all have an end, the invariable. I personally can tell you how hard it is to get disability or Social Security. Take me 2.5 years to get disability. Yes, sounds like, yeah, if it's 2.5 years, or at least you did the right thing. You're geeks. You fought for it. A lot of people give up. And this is what the politicians are hoping people will do with the big, beautiful bill in terms of, Medicaid and food stamps and all the rest of it. They're hoping you give up, and that's how they're going to kick a lot of people off of Medicaid. But we're going to make sure people don't give up like Gear Geeks did. He or she was denied, filed again an appeal, request for reconsideration, appealed, went all the way to the administrative law judge and got approved, and hopefully got that back pay. So what if that Canadian had married a U.S. citizen after serving in Vietnam and then when 65 wanted his Social Security or spousal benefits? Still had to be a U.S. citizen. Yeah. There are some countries that have totalization agreements. There are a few exceptions for spouses and stuff. Yeah, you still had to, when you file as a spouse, you have to file for benefits on your own record first. So if that person, with the Canadian that served in the American military in Vietnam, they were working in the United States, so they would have to file for benefits on their own record first. And then once they're approved for benefits on their own record, then they can file for a spouse claim. So they would still have to prove their legal status in the United States. I look forward to when we will have a government for the people instead of government for the MAGA billionaires. Yeah, of the people, for the people, and by the people. Yes, that was That was a nice dream, wasn't it? We can bring it back though. Participatory democracy. Bonnie, that's what I meant because they wear suits, they think they're smarter, and they make things worse, even though the answer is sometimes easy. Yes, simplify, simplify, simplify. Exactly. Yes. Henry David Thoreau. I have been fighting for disability for 2.5 years. I'm 61 years old, received full disability judgment from a judge with full back pay. Received notice that disability is $380 a month with $185 for Medicare. Wow. So yes, you probably freaked out that you're eligible for Medicare because you're 61 years old. And the reason is because, once you're approved for Social Security disability insurance, then you have to wait 2 years. You're not, which is the stupidest law. We should definitely change that. If you're approved for disability, I would argue you should get Medicare immediately. If you file for Social Security benefits at 62, you should get Medicare immediately, but that's just me. Anyway, and a lot of viewers. But when you're on disability, you get Medicare after 2 years. And you're like, well, I was just approved last month. Yeah, but then they gave you 2.5 years of back pay. So that's why they started so technically you were on Medicare or you were on Social Security disability for 2 years. That's why your Medicare started immediately. So your disability, 380 bucks a month. So that is based on your earnings record. Oh gosh. So the only thing I could think of to increase your benefit amount, because you filed 2.5 years ago, there is a thing called disabled widows benefits. So if you became disabled between the age of 50 and 59 and you were married to someone that passed, you could actually receive disability benefits on that person's record. It's called disabled widows benefits, but hopefully they check that out. And the only other thing to increase your benefit amount is they should have addressed this when you filed for SSDI, but they should have addressed the SSI issue, supplemental security income. That's the welfare base, but you have to have low income and low resources. So if you have, resources of over $2,000 if you're single, $3,000 if you're married, then you wouldn't be eligible for SSI. So that might be the case. Other than that, you can reach out to the state and apply for Medicaid. And if they approve you for Medicaid, they just might pay your $185. It's called the Medicare Savings Program. So again, but Medicaid is also a needs-based program as well. So you have to have low income, low resources, depending on the state. Some states are a little bit more generous than others. So I would definitely check that out. So let's see. CJ asked SSA prior to getting married, 3DF, if I'd lose my benefits, was told no. 1 year after getting married, they're wanting survivor benefits back. Anyway, do in-person waiver. So you can get remarried after 60 years old. If you get remarried before 60 years old, then that stops your survivor benefits. But after 60, you can. So if you got remarried after 60 years old, then you need to file a waiver. And that is on my website. It's on the Social Security website as well. It's SSA 561. So you go to my website, you click on the little appeals section there, and you're at a level 1 request it's a reconsideration, and that's the form right there. It's SSA 561, request for reconsideration. And in terms of the the reconsideration, you disagree with the fact that, of the decision that they made. So if you got remarried after 60, then you should file 561 because you disagree with that decision, because it shouldn't apply to you because you got remarried after 60. If you didn't, then you just might have an overpayment, and you can ask for a waiver. And that's also my website. You click on, let me pull it up here, click on more, click on overpayments, and this will show up. And you can do an SSA 632, and that's a request for overpayment, or you can set up a payment plan. And now you can set it up and, pay, 60 months, no interest. So, is it okay for me to reference this site when I write my politicians? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. We need a lot more people out there to help other people. We just had someone yesterday that finally got some survivor benefits. And we have that happen every single week. You don't know what you don't know. And unfortunately, it's going to get a lot worse because Social Security is at a skeleton crew. Elon Musk and Doge fired so many people. Social Security was already at a 50-year low in terms of resources, staffing. So it was already hurting. They were already hurting. Now it's even worse. And because of that, people are not going to get the benefits they need and eligible for. So that's why we're doing this channel every single day. I am on 5 years applying for disability and yet have not been able to get my disability approved. Wow, 5 years. I don't think you are, so you're definitely not in an active appeal status because there are no cases out there that are an active appeal status at 5 years, unless you're waiting for the Supreme Court. Because when you file an appeal, there's several stages. And so on my understanding the appeals process, you got the first one. So you get denied and then you appeal, and the first level of appeals request reconsideration. This one takes nowadays about 6 or 9 months to get. Then if you're denied there, then you go to the administrative law judge, and that adds another year or so onto it to get your day in court to talk to administrative law judge. If you're denied there, you go to the appeals council and they review the administrative law judge's decision, and that takes many, many months. And then if you're denied there, then you can file a federal court, appeal it in federal court. And then if you're denied there, the level 5 is the Supreme Court. So if you were actively been doing this for 5 years, you're probably in the federal court review. If you're not, then yeah, something is terribly wrong, and you need to contact your politicians and have them expedite and tell them to support customer service at Social Security, which they don't want to do because they want Social Security customer service to be terrible. So we'll all hate it, and then when they come up with this bright idea of giving it all to their billionaire buddies, we'll say, well, they can do a lot better than Social Security. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sandra, ex-husband of 35 years, applied for Social Security at 62. He forgot he could have received benefits under my Social Security disability. He called back 3 months later and said they know he had to apply for mine in the beginning. No. Yeah, if he was eligible for benefits, yeah, he talked to the wrong person. He talked to someone at the front windows, the person that picked up the phone, which are generalists. He needs to talk to an expert. And tell him to set up an appointment to file for spouse benefits and say these 2 words: deemed filing. Deemed filing. So when he files for benefits, he was obligated to file for any other benefits he was eligible for at that time because there was a law change quite a few years ago. So yes, there's that. So, and tell us how it went. They should treat him right. And again, same type of situation. If they still say no for whatever reason, then tell him to file a request for reconsideration. But don't tell him whatever the person at the front window or the person on the phone says, X, Y, or Z, says, I don't care. I want to talk to a T2CS, Title II claim specialist. And those are the people that deal with retirement, spouse, survivors, Social Security disability. That's what I was before I became a manager, T2CS. Good afternoon. I currently receiving Social Security disability, and in a letter I was told I have money in Social Security benefits. Why can't I get both? Yeah, you get the higher of the two. So if you're receiving disability benefits and you're talking your other money is Social Security retirement, your disability benefits are higher. Because if you're, let's say, 62 years old and you're receiving disability benefits, you're receiving disability benefits as if you started at your full retirement age. If you start retirement benefits at 62, you're going to get a 30% reduction. So yeah, you can't get both. The only time on your own record, you can get disability benefits and then also spouse benefits or divorce spouse benefits or independently entitled divorce spouse benefits. One offsets the other. You don't get two full checks. One offsets the other, but so you can get two checks there. Thank you for all the help you give us. If I'll be 62, December 11th, what month would be the best to apply to start IEDS in February 2026? All boxes are checked. Awesome. Good deal. So you got your, you don't have to wait on these, but it's good to go ahead and get prepared. You need your marriage certificate, divorce decree, to show that 10 years marriage. And also because you're filing for independently entitled divorce spouse benefits, you also need to prove that you've been finally divorced for 2 years. So yeah, if you want to start everything in December, what is it? Pretty much September here. You can. I would call them now and set up an appointment because you probably won't get your appointment until October, November, and then that's perfect time because you can file 3 months in advance. So yeah, I would probably call now because you're not going to get your appointment immediately. So it's probably going to take a month or two to get an appointment date. So I would do it that. And for independently entitled divorce spouse benefits, you can't file online. You have to do it over the phone or with go into local office. So, please explain family maximum. Daughter on SSDI on my spouse's record. I can apply on my record, then on spouse record. Will that affect either of us? Yes. And this is, Social Security employees hate this. It's called the combined family max. So a family max is if, so Congress said, obviously, we have to limit how much money goes out of the trust fund. So if someone is receiving, let's say, $2,000 on their own record, retirement, disability, or benefits, whatever, and they have a child, the child can receive 50% of that benefit amount. So it's $1,000. So if they have 2 children, that's $2,000. Let's say they have 20 children, that's $20,000 plus your $2,000, that's $22,000 going out every month. So Congress said, yeah, no, we can't do that. That's, trust fund will be empty in no time. So they came up with this family max. It's usually about 185%, 150 to 185% of your full benefit amount. So they take that, let's say your family max is, let's just say, make it easy, $4,000 is your family max. You're receiving $2,000, so there's $2,000 left over. So you can have 2 children, therefore, that receive $1,000 each. So, but when that child is eligible for, so if you've already ran up to the family max and your children's benefits are being reduced because of that family max, and then there's another parent that also starts Social Security benefits, then the employee, the Social Security employee hates these because it's a strange manual claim that they have to do, but they put together a combined family max. But that's their issue that they have to deal with. So you just make sure, you get all the benefits you're eligible for. I am 68. How can we get more money? I live below national average. Yeah. On my website, let's see here. I built this website for y'all based on all your, sorry, I went to high school in Paris, Texas. So that's the plural of you is all y'all, by the way. So, living on Social Security alone. So click on the more there, go on to the living on Social Security alone, and it has some of the programs out there. Obviously, SNAP is being cut big time. This one is being cut by the big, beautiful bill. Politicians believe it's, it's beautiful for people to go hungry and having to deal with, their primary care physician is the emergency room. Medicaid is being cut. Yeah, a lot of these are being cut, unfortunately. I guess it's a beautiful thing, according to our politicians, that people that are suffering are going to suffer more, while the rich get a bunch of discounts, a lot of tax breaks. Anyway, so check out this, and I've also done a video that you can see in my description on living on Social Security alone. I go through about 50 different programs, but off the bat, if your Social Security benefit is under $967, contact Social Security, file for SSI. If you have a hard time paying that $185 Medicare Part B premium, contact Medicaid and apply for Medicaid and ask them to pay for your Medicare Part B premium. So yeah, there's a few options out there. Not as many as we'd like. A lot of people out there are suffering, and even more going forward. So it is bad enough to be sick, but when SSDI makes the sick wait too long, they pass away. Yes, 100%. And that's a travesty. And a stat came out a few years ago that said 30,000 people pass away every year while they're waiting for their Social Security disability to be approved. And some of that is just the fact that, terrible cancers and stuff like that, they're diagnosed and within they immediately file for a Social Security disability benefit. And those, are approved, almost immediately. But that number is just atrocious. Yeah. And it's getting worse. It's going to get a lot worse because there's just no Social Security employees, and you can't really do that stuff with AI and have it trustworthy. You want to test that theory, call Social Security and go through their AI system that they're trying to push on us. And I think they just signed a contract with Elon Musk's AI, the X or Grok, the one that gave, not supposed to say the word or some of the platforms I'm on. That guy that was president of Germany for a while? That guy. So let's see. Let's see. Find someone that I don't recognize here. Social Security didn't catch that I was eligible for SSI, SSDI concurrent because I worked part-time at Walmart before filing. So they finally caught it, and I was eligible for Medicare after 2 years. Oh, okay. So, all right. Yes, this is a common thing. Well, not so common. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. So hopefully it sounds like they did catch it. What Tristan is talking about is when he filed for Social Security benefits from Social Security. There's two different programs. SSIs, the supplemental security income. You can get that based on being disabled or aged, 65 and older. So he filed for it under a disability. And they checked to see if he was eligible for SSDI based on the work that he did. And there's two things for eligibility for SSDI. You actually had to pay into the system for at least 10 years, most people. And you also had to be currently insured. That means you paid 5 out of the last 10 years. So probably in Tristan's case, they said, yeah, you're insured. You did pay into Social Security, but you didn't pay 5 out of the last 10 years. And what they forgot to do was add your work, your recent work, and that would have got you that 5 out of 10 years. So that was, maybe you filed online or whatever the case may be, or if you didn't, then that Social Security employer, whoever did it, did it wrong. They should have asked you, are you currently working? And, and then they find out that you're not currently insured, and then they should have gotten your pay stubs and added that in there. So, but luckily they caught it. And I'm going to have to do a video on that. Thank you, Tristan. It doesn't happen very often. But I'm going to do a video on that. SSDI insured versus currently insured. And I'll add that on there. Thank you, Tristan, for reminding me of that. I think I did one a year or so ago, but it's time to do it again. Will SSDI also be cut by 23% in 88 months? Yes, it will. Everything. Social Security by law can only pay out what it gets, what it has. So Social Security cannot borrow money. By the current law, they cannot borrow money. So, Social Security disability benefits, survivor benefits, spouse benefits, independently entitled divorce spouse benefits, retirement. It's all going to be cut, unfortunately. You're a good man, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. Does the cut apply? Yes, I already answered that one. What if beneficiary's child is born outside of U.S.? Family max apply? Yeah, as long as the child is eligible, U.S. citizen born abroad, whatever the case may be, the family max still applies. Doesn't matter where the person was born. If they're eligible, then they're eligible. Another wonderful secret. I went to vote with my 19-year-old daughter in November. We voted for the candidate who was out on bail. Was found guilty. Okay, that's found. All right. So I've got some, let's see. I've got some video questions. I've got one that's kind of shy. She didn't show her face, so it's just a black screen here. But let's listen to her question and see what we can do to help her out.
Okay, Dr. Ed, I, uh, 13 and a half years I have tried to get my uh, Social Security out here. I moved to this state and got sick within 3 months of being here. Got really sick. And by the 6th month, after having some medical diagnosis and tests done in the hospital, uh, my diagnosis was confirmed, and I was listed as temporarily disabled. Uh, I did have insurance built up through the last job I had before I came to this state, and right away I got a lawyer and tried to collect my Social Security. I was denied benefits, even after he said I would get them, that I definitely was a candidate for them. And then I let him know I had some money saved up through working.
Okay, so yeah, and then she adds another video there as well and adds some more medical type stuff, which I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't help with that one. So it looks like she's had a couple of a couple of lawyers check this out, and no one's been able to help. It sounds as though she had some money saved up, and that affected her benefits. So the only time that is a factor, the fact that you are denied Social Security because you have money, is because of SSI, the Supplemental Security Income, the welfare-based program. You have to have, limited resources, limited income. So it sounds as though that is like the situation we were just talking about with Tristan, is that she's not entitled to regular Social Security benefits because she didn't pay into it long enough or didn't pay 5 out of the last 10 years. The ideas on being currently insured is this: Congress, passed this law that Social Security has to apply. It's basically, I give the example of, let's say you've got someone that's in their 20s or 30s, they work for 10 years, and now they are insured for Social Security. So when they reach 62 years old, they can get their Social Security retirement, no problem. But in terms of disability, they're also insured for disability. They work in their 20s and 30s, so if they become disabled at 35 years old, they can collect their disability benefits, no problem. Okay. But let's say this person at 35, makes a whole bunch of money and then doesn't work for the next 20 years, travels the world, cliff dives in Acapulco, whatever the case may be, and then gets injured cliff diving in Acapulco. They go into Social Security and say, I can no longer work. I broke my neck or back or whatever the case may be, and I need to file for disability benefits because I can't work. Congress says, yeah, but you haven't been working. So you can't take off for years and years and years and then say, hey, I can no longer work because you haven't been working. So Social Security has this thing called currently insured. You had to work 5 out of the last 10 years. And it doesn't have to be the last 5 years. So you can, out of the last 10 years, you can work 1 year and not work for a couple of years and work another year and then work another year and then not work. It just has to equal 5 years and even, months and stuff. Social Security, their computer system automatically calculates that. And what happened with Tristan is he probably had 4 years out of the last 10, but the Social Security employee made a mistake and didn't add his most recent work, and therefore he would have been insured. And that hurts because you don't get Medicare from SSI. You can only get it from SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. So he was without Medicare for think you finally got it after 2.5 years. So you might have been without Medicare for 6 months. So without health insurance for 6 months. So that was terrible that they messed your claim up like that. So that's why we'll do another video and talk about that. So what advice would you give to have a worry-free retirement? Yeah, it's worrying doesn't help anything, right? It's, you plan, you anticipate, and it's gunny highway, improvise, adapt, overcome. But yeah, worrying about stuff doesn't help anything. It actually hurts your male pattern baldness. But yeah, you just, in terms of Social Security, you make sure you check your earnings, make sure everything is good there. You plan, but with being on the other side of the table, for a few decades, life is what happens while you're making other plans. So that's life. It's not the opposite of life. That is life, unfortunately. So you never know what's going to happen. And that's one of the things about Social Security. A lot of people don't understand, politicians and stuff. And they're, Social Security should be privatized and make more money in the stock market and stuff like that. But every stock company, every investment company, they always say the closer you get to retirement, the more conservative you should be. And you should put more money into the safest thing you possibly can. What's the safest thing possibly can? U.S. Treasury bonds. That's what, companies do. Warren Buffett does. Other countries invest in U.S. Treasury bonds. The Social Security, that's where the Social Security Trust Fund is, because it's the safest. And the thing with Social Security is you're like, oh, okay, but until then, they should do more riskier. Well, you are one bad day away from claiming your Social Security benefits. If you're 35 years old today, then, when you're younger, you live forever and it's no issue. But you're one bad day. If you get into an accident or you get sick tomorrow, you could very well need to walk into the Social Security office tomorrow and file for your benefits. So as all investment people say, the closer you get to a critical time like that is when you need to be the safest. So that's why a lot of us say, no, we shouldn't gamble our retirement money, our disability, our survivor spouse claim benefits on, Wall Street. Not unless you are disabled. Otherwise, you must wait. Okay, someone answering somebody else's question. Can't really hear the video. Yeah, so I'll have a little technical issues. So I will play the rest of the videos tomorrow. So if you, I've got like 4 or 5 of those video questions and it wasn't working well. So I'll just play the rest of them tomorrow. I apologize to those people that left those videos. When are you going to stop telling everyone you don't know anything about? Okay, I'm not sure. My ex-wife is now 69. Is the time she filed for ex-spouse benefits. If for ex-spouse benefits, 69, yeah, that's way, way, way too late, because ex-spouse benefits, divorce spouse benefits don't increase after you hit your full retirement age. So if her full retirement age is 67, the very latest you should file for ex-spouse benefits is 67. So if it sounds like that person's waited too long. So don't forget to pay your income taxes. Yes, yes. All right. Let's see if we got any other out there. And my son is autistic. His father is retired. Can I apply for SSDI for my son under his father when 21? You can apply now. So if he has a parent that's receiving retirement benefits or disability benefits, then, and the child is under the age of 18, they should file anyway, because they'd be eligible for benefits as just what's called an auxiliary child under the age of 18. But if the child became disabled before the age of 22, then that's called a child disability benefits that eventually turns into it's called a DAC, a disabled adult child benefit. So if you have a child that became disabled before the age of 22, they can file for benefits on their parent's record. And if that parent is receiving benefits, or if that parent passes away, and they can receive benefits for the rest of their life. So I'll be 60 this year, and I'm applying for disability benefits. Yep, So yeah, if you're unable to work because of a disability, absolutely file. The only other benefits you potentially are eligible at the age of 60 are surviving spouse benefits. And that's another thing that people make mistakes on. They think, you can only get Social Security benefits at 62. That is correct on your, retirement benefits, living spouse benefits, but a surviving spouse can get surviving spouse benefits starting at 60 years old. A lot of people miss that one. So, all right. That is it. Oh, and Tristan has a little follow up there. Let's see if I read. I actually only worked 8 months part time when I was 19 and realized my mental health doctor was right. I needed to be on Social Security, SSDI. Yeah. So, but luckily your kind of question sparked other answers that might not apply to you. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it applies to you. But it just still might. Because if you're, for most people for Social Security disability, they had to pay into Social Security for 10 years, just like retirement benefits. But if you're young, there's a minimum 6 quarters of coverage, then you are still eligible for Social Security disability insurance. So it really depends. So obviously, if you're, say for instance, if you're 24 years old to become disabled, but you've been working for 4 years or 5 years or whatever, Social Security, still has those extra provisions that said, yes, we understand you didn't work 10 years because, hey, you're only 24 years old. But disability, the threshold for quarters of coverage is a lot less when you're 24 years old. So a lot of people miss that one. They say, yeah, 24 years old, I just got in an accident or something. I need to file for disability, but I heard there was a 10-year, you had to be insured for Social Security for 10 years. No, there's exceptions for very young people. So, all right, that is it for today. We're not able to get to everybody's question, but I will be back again tomorrow. And if you got any comments, please leave them in the description down there, the comments, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. And please take care of each other. Bye-bye.